What's going on, guys? My name is Tim Roswick, and today we're talking about emotions. Don't we all love emotions? Don't we all love these beautiful things inside us that make us see the world through these tinted lenses? Well, it turns out that emotions are actually a very effective design tool. When I first started designing games, when I first started working in game development and kind of building stuff and all that, I just wanted to make something cool, right? Like I wanted to impress my friends. That's really what I wanted to do. I wanted to make something that I could bring to school and be like, yo, look what I made. Look what I made. What'd you do this weekend? I made a video game. It started out with like my obsession with first-person shooters because I got into Halo, and so I wanted to make a first-person shooter, and I had no way to show my friends all this stuff. So I like figured out a way to back then I had a PSP. I got it on launch day. I was so excited, but I found out that I could put video files on my PSP. So I managed to record a video of my game to put on my PSP just so I could show my friends at school back before smartphones were a thing. And that was fun. And it was a cool little way to kind of make video games. But after a while of doing that, friends stopped caring. And I really was still in the game development, but I was trying to figure out, okay, why am I doing this? What am I designing these things around? Why am I making things? And I started to realize that games are inherently experiences. They're experiences and they're entertainment combined. Movies, the greatest movies of all time, they walk you through a piece in someone's life, just a sliver, just a moment, right? Where that shows a little bit of character progression. It shows a little bit of emotion. It shows a little bit of this person starting somewhere and then ending somewhere else and the events that unfold there. And I think the good games do that too. But there are so many different ways to do that design-wise. And you can take the same concept, but in execution, if you design it around a bunch of different emotions, you're going to get a bunch of different games. So for example, you can take a first-person shooter, right? And you can design it around something like, I don't know, exploration or discovery, right? And you get something like Halo. You can design it around fear and you get the actual game Fear. You can design it around all kinds of different stuff. You can design it around anger, right? And get something a little more fast-paced and evil, maybe something like Doom. Even though that would be a little bit of fear and anger, but that's just like in-your-face hardcore action. And so the emotion that you design the game around is actually pretty significant in how you make a game. And I didn't really realize this until I started working on projects beyond simple mobile games. A lot of my earlier games are mobile games. They're just simple, score-based type of get your high score mobile games. And I think it still applies there, right? Like the emotion on those games is still important. Like you need to, figure out what you're trying to convey, what's the experience that you want this person to have. But it especially comes into play when you're trying to design a story or you're trying to design an immersive experience, something bigger than just a high score based game, something with levels, something with player progression or character progression, something with a beginning and an end that are different, and so on and so forth. And for Phonophobia, this has been something that I've kind of done from the start. Even though in the beginning I didn't really realize what I was doing, now that I'm in the swing of things, I'm like intentionally designing emotion into the games. Phonophobia is a little bit different than most games because it's based around the 5 stages of grief. Those are the 5 different stages of the actual game. So the first sections are based around denial. They're based around pretending things that aren't there. They're based around just pushing things in the back of your mind and not dealing with things. And that creates some really interesting enemy opportunities. That creates things that move and block you. It creates things that stop you from going certain places. My speakers are freaking out. It has a lot of really interesting little things that I'm still playing with. Honestly, I'm still kind of figuring it out. The second section, anger, is really designed around anger. It's really designed around a fast-paced speed of kind of these all these enemies. They got to be fast. They got to be hardcore. I'm even working on some interesting concepts now that are actually forcing the player to keep moving all the time, or they'll die. Things like that, I think, are really, really important. And I'm using a lot of the color red. I'm using a lot of these really sharp spikes that just make everything look really angry and really hostile. And so me designing around that emotion has a profound effect on these levels. And these levels come out completely different than some of the other levels, all because I really want to design around that emotion. And I think it's really important if you're designing a game that you really think about the emotion that you want the game to convey. And like Phylophobia, I think some of the best games and movies and entertainment, for that matter, don't just stick to one emotion, right? There are different emotions for different sections. And if you can properly convey each one of those emotions with the world building, with the design, with the level design, with the sprites or the models, with the colors and the textures, if you can really think about that emotion for the set piece, like as you're designing it, for this world that they're going to be exploring, it makes a profound effect on really everything that you build. And the emotion doesn't even need to be stated anywhere, right? Like, you don't have to tell players this is an angry scene or this is an angry level. You can just design everything around that emotion, right? Or you could do sadness, or like later on I have a section that's based around depression. It's really sad. It's all rainy. It's got these moving walls that cave in on you. Like, there are really interesting things that you can do when you really think about the emotion. And I never expressively, well, I do in Phylophobia a little bit because it's kind of important to the progression of the story. But for most stories, you don't actually have to disclose this stuff. You could just build it into your world, and because of that, the world seems so much more rich. The lore seems like it's built from the ground up. It seems like there's more there than just what the player is experiencing, and it creates some really cool experiences. Ever since I started doing this, I get a lot of compliments on stuff, and they're not things that you normally think were compliments, but like, people make comments like how they like certain things, or I feel really, pushed for time here. I feel like I want to get this done, or I feel like I want to run this direction. And that's really interesting because those are experiences being designed around that specific emotion, around the emotion that's pushing them to use those actions. And humans are emotional creatures, man. So if you're not using emotion in the design of your game, I think you're doing something wrong. I think you're not doing something wrong, because you can design a game without emotions, because I've done it. But I think you're missing a critical piece of what makes game design, what makes great game design. So I want to share that with you guys today because, it's kind of been a discovery of mine along the long journey of Phylophobia as I kind of build this and make this happen. And I hope there's plenty more discoveries like this, because this was a really cool thing for me that I learned over the last couple of years and really came to light recently doing a lot of level design for Phylophobia. So I wanted to share it. If you've got any additions on this, anything else you'd like to add, leave that down below. If you got any questions about emotion in design, I'd be happy to answer them. You can leave those down below as well. But once again, my name is Tim Roswick, and I will see you again tomorrow.